Hello everybody and welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about paganism, old Milwaukee style. Now for me, the contents of this video, it all starts by looking at Milwaukee because like a lot of cities, especially in North America, it's got a lot of this architecture that just seems out of place. Like we might not have built these things, that they were already there. So while looking into Milwaukee a bit more, this is probably over a year ago, I stumbled across this department store called Chapman's Department Store, supposedly built in 1872. And the title, the article that I had read or saw was captioned, "Remember when Chapman's had an eagle on top?" And I just thought that was, at the time, yeah, very, very odd for some, just a random eagle on top of a department store, but didn't think anything much of it. And obviously the other thing I noticed about this department store was the grade, the street level. Looks like it is mud flood affected. But also the window is curious to me because you sort of see this dynamic a lot. I've seen it a few times where you have an eagle perched up, or a statue of an eagle perched on top of like a monument obelisk that's got this 8 patterned design on it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I didn't know what to do with that. I just let this sort of stick in the back of my mind. And then more recently, I started coming across more eagle symbology related to Milwaukee. And there's this supposed World War I memorial in a place called Humboldt Park in Milwaukee. And this particular article was saying the monument that was not designed as a war memorial and was not supposed to be located where it currently stands. That kind of heading definitely catches my attention. So just thought that was interesting. And here's that memorial up close, and it's octagonal. And there's your eagle perched up on that sphere there, orb. And this was just an article talking about it. So interesting, but I continued looking, and then I stumbled across this central library in Milwaukee. And it's got 2 eagles perched up on top of it. And the structure, by the way, allegedly was... there was a national competition held again for its design, and these architects got the bid. They had the winning design, but you see that a lot, these competitions for these structures that we don't think we built in the first place. But so this structure has these eagles atop, and it was, we're told, built in 1895, and it's the headquarters for the Milwaukee Public Library System. And here's just a more recent photo, and they're still there in just an opposing view. And here you go, you can see these guys close up. But there's an old postcard. There's a column out in front of this library, and it actually had an eagle perched up on it, but here's that column today, and the eagle is gone. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I just wanted to show you a current shot up here. These churches, there's a third church, I think, right here. But look at the spires on this thing. Just, that's a beautiful church right there. So that was interesting. So I next stumbled across this building called the Germania building. And there's this empty lot in front of it, this little triangular lot. But when you go looking at older photos, you'll see there was a building called the Triangle Building with an interesting entrance there on the side. But you can see this Germania building behind it, and if you look at the rooftop, you've got these eagles again perched up there on top of the orbs or spheres. Here's some more. And I think I've got another older image taken from the vantage point on top of this triangle building. And so here we have a clear view of this Germania building, supposedly built, I think it was 1896. But you can see there are the eagles. So we have these things are starting to build up now. So we've got a memorial, supposedly a department store, allegedly, right? We've got, I think this was like a publishing house. They were publishers. And they've got this symbology, these eagles on top. And then we got a library. So very sort of different purpose structures, but they're all flashing these same symbols, right? So it definitely caught my attention. But where things kind of turned a little bit was when I started looking into that Germania building again, and they've taken off those eagles. But when you start reading the description of the building, apparently there was a 10-foot tall, 3-ton bronze statue of Germania on a pediment over the door. So the triangular portion here, that's the pediment. So there was a 10-foot, 3-ton statue of, and at this time I didn't know what Germania was, of Germania. So when I started looking up Germania, you start running across articles talking about one of Milwaukee's great unsolved mysteries, how this statue has not been seen since the 1940s and no one really knows or is unsure of what happened to it. And there was one more article just talking about the mystery of the Germania statue. How did a monumental 3-ton bronze statue disappear? And I think so. In I think it was 1919, they took out the statue, apparently because it was associated with German heritage nationalism. They took, because there was World War I anti-German sentiment, obviously related to World War I. So they took the statue down in like 1919, and this was the last time it was seen, and I think it was 1940 in the basement of the Milwaukee Auditorium. But so from this point, I decided I didn't know anything about Germania. So I started looking into, well, what's Germania? It's a personification of the German nation, or the Germans as a whole. And it's got this eagle symbolism, or this personification has this eagle imagery associated with it. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. So, and this is where I didn't know about any of this, and I just kind of wanted to share it with you guys. From the 1800s to the early 1900s, it was popular for countries to have female personifications of themselves. These personifications were often based off of the Greek goddess Athena and the goddess of wisdom. And the most popularly used goddess personifications were Britannia, Germania, Marianne, and Columbia with America. So the story goes that in the 1800s, all these countries decide to have personifications of their countries in the form of a goddess, and they have their various names. So we saw Germania, and she seemed to be associated with the eagle. Now, just a quick mention of Columbia. So Columbia is the American personification, basically from just after the American independence. So what is that, 1776 up until 1920, Columbia was the dominant personification. But then that morphs into Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty. So after World War I, so in the 20s and on, this Lady Liberty took the place of Columbia, but Lady Liberty was seen as an aspect of Columbia. Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this up, supposedly this is another one of these personifications, Columbia. which is supposed to be different from Germania. Now, there was this women's suffrage parade in 1913, and so you had over 5,000 women, apparently some on horseback, marching through the streets of the nation's capital. It was all to get the right to vote. And for some reason, some of them are dressed as, when you read into it and look into it, they're dressed up as Columbia, this personification. And again, you see this eagle on the sphere, on the orb, and it's interesting. And there's even some of these women, they're dressed up, they're on horses, and there's this interesting symbology with the 5-pointed star as well. Now, so again, there's a lot of the overlap between these personifications, and when you sort of look at Columbia's sort of personification and some of her attributes, we see these morphed right into the fictional character Wonder Woman. You've got the eagle, you've got this 5-pointed star, and you have this white horse. This is Wonder Woman issue number 1. I think it was in the summer of 1942. So just blatant symbolism. But again, the eagle, right? So it's not just Germania that is associated with the eagle. It's also this Columbia. And when you look at the Columbian Exposition, I always thought this statue was of a man, actually, but was referred to as the Statue of the Republic. It turns out it is the statue is a woman, and it was destroyed by fire. And I just remember laughing about that, because even when something is surrounded by water, it still can't survive the fire. But again, you have this eagle symbology, right? And so it's not just Germania with all this eagle symbology. And this statue was also referred to as Big Mary. And after it burned down, they created a replica of it, and it's in Jackson Park, which is also in Chicago, not far away from the original World Fair, but it's nicknamed the Golden Lady. And I should mention that this statue here, I think it was like over 60 feet tall, just massive. And this one is, I think, 1/3 that size, so about 20 feet. But referred to as a lady, right? Golden Lady. So just the point I'm trying to make here, again, Columbia is associated with the eagle. Germania is associated with the eagle, right? And then, as mentioned a little bit earlier, this Columbia personification sort of transforms into Lady Liberty. And instead of holding an eagle, she's carrying a torch, and you have Columbia pictures, right? So it's just sort of all blending in. And I think this whole story about all these countries having personifications, I think it's just a cover story to explain all this goddess worship. It's just paganism, and it's masked as, these personifications. And I think if they have all these unique personifications for each country, I think it's just all one, representing one goddess, and it's just different sort of modes, right? Like sometimes she'll have a sword, or she'll have a torch, or she'll have an eagle. And the people who owned that Germania building, or who inherited that building, they had a summer home just outside of Milwaukee on Pine Lake. And on their property, they had a plaster replica of that statue of Germania that was on that Germania building. And you see here, the statue has, just like the statue of Lady Liberty, right? She's got the torch. So again, I think it's all the same thing. And then we can take it even a bit further, and you look at Milwaukee again, and I came across these articles talking about what's with all the lion statues in Milwaukee. That Germanium building that we looked at, that had the 10-foot tall, 3-ton statue of supposedly Germania, who's supposed to be this personification. it was flanked by two guardian lions. So again, just the symbology, right? It's all blends in. And just to show you how it repeats, there's this really cool structure, and we're told it was the old police headquarters in New York. Now, this supposedly was built in 1909, and you can't find construction photos for this thing. And there was a quote from supposedly the architect: "The building was not intended to look like a police station, but was inspired by the city hall." And apparently they wanted to impress both officer and prisoner. But it's still around today, and it's got the sunken windows and all that. But they turned it into these expensive condos is basically what it is today. And you've got these like marble clad lobbies. I mean, I can't believe, when you look back at this stuff and they tell us like this is like a police headquarters. It's just, man, we bought all this, eh? But on top of this structure, over the pediment, is this figure, right, of looks like another goddess, and there's an eagle right there. And I know the Great Seal of New York looks very similar to this, which that's probably what that is, but it's got an eagle associated with it. And when you look at the bottom of this building, here's that statue up top, and when you go to the base of this building, there's these two lions. So again, I mean, with the exception, the only difference between this and the Germania building, these lions were up here on either side of this statue of a goddess anyway, and she was holding a sword. So just slightly different, but just all the elements are there. And when you sort of look into the origin, what they say or who they say this is, apparently it was an allegorical statue representing the 5 boroughs of New York. So they're not even giving this one a personification, but it's the exact same as the Germania building and Columbia and all these things, all the same symbology. But what I wanted to mention, by the way, about this structure, when they turned it into condos, I came across an article just talking about the people who are doing the renovations. They mentioned rather interestingly, during the planning phase of the renovation, it was discovered that the building did not fit the land allotted to it in the municipal plans. So the people who were closing, they asked for a survey, and in every single solitary direction, the building exceeded the lot line, sometimes by several feet. So the plans didn't match, and an interesting tidbit, because I don't think we built it in the first place, but just wanted to mention that. So staying in New York, I think this is last thing I'll touch on here, is there's this bronze sculpture called Alma Mater, and it's a personification, and it's associated with a university. It's a personification of the traditional image of a certain university as a nourishing mother. Okay, well, guess what university this is associated with? Yeah, Columbia, of course, University. But this is the statue, and I don't doubt this is a more recent statue, but what I'm saying is this is the same goddess. It's just masked as a personification of a nourishing mother. Yeah, it's just the same goddess, same paganism, masked as personifications. And what's the mascot of Columbia University? I'll give you 2 guesses. The answer is the lions. It was going to be lions or eagles, right? Which is a fairly common mascot, to be fair, but it just adds to it. That's all. yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this whole notion of personifications, I think it's just a mask to hide all the paganism, all the goddess worship. So just wanted to touch on this real quick, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, take care. Bye.